After taking a leadership role on root causes, the actual root causes, invest in the root causes, the overall issue, which is root causes, on the root causes. You can't just react to a problem without solving it at its roots.
Well, there you go. Root causes. A record number of illegal immigrants are making their way into the U.S. But don't worry. As you saw, our border czar is finally getting to the bottom of those root causes. Today, Vice President Harris unveiled her 5-point plan to combat the crisis. Of course, no mention of securing our border because that would have required 6 points and there just wasn't any room. No, Kamala believes a social justice overhaul is the answer. She wants to throw money at the Northern Triangle to win hearts and minds and address issues like economic insecurity and inequality, and that, of course, is insulting to those nations, but whatever. Meanwhile, reports are Joe Biden will be meeting with a group of senators to discuss an amnesty plan. So they are very, very busy, obviously. Joining me now, Chris Stigall, radio and podcast host of The Chris Stigall Show, and Fox News contributor Katie Pavlich. Katie, let me start with you. Not only does it, and she insulted the Guatemalan president when she was there, talking about how she, needs to help their country and problems need to be solved there. Is this even any of our business? Isn't the border our business? Isn't this country our business? Why are we suddenly focused on changing those countries from the inside out?
Well, because that would be saying that you're solving a problem without actually solving a problem that you created and that you actually are benefiting from politically in the long term. The interesting thing about that is them solving the root causes in Guatemala, for example, is just this week the State Department announced that they were cutting ties and negotiations and cooperation with the Attorney General in Guatemala because there were too many corruption issues, which of course we knew about before the Vice President decided she was going to go there and try to change years and years of corruption in that country. The bottom line is that the root causes of the current crisis, and it is a crisis, it's actually a scandal considering they're sending thousands of COVID positive individuals into American communities while they tell the rest of America to go back to lockdowns and masks and to change their behavior. The root causes are coming from the White House. The root causes are coming from the Democratic Party that gives illegal immigrants benefits like free health care, that allows them to travel the country on the taxpayer dollar with a bus ticket and a plane ticket wherever they would like to go without having any kind of restriction. And of course, now we're seeing that 70% of or greater of these people are not showing up for their ICE hearings.
Surprise.
So essentially, if you show up in America now, you get to stay, and that is beneficial for Democrats because they would like these people to eventually vote for the Democratic Party.
Well, I have to say, I want both of you to take a look at this because the American people, despite what the Democrats think and the establishment think, aren't dumb babies drooling, right, with no thoughts in their heads. Let's take a look at a new poll when it comes to how the Vice President and President are viewed. Their unfavorable rating, Kamala Harris, 46%, Joe Biden, 43%. It is... that is, of course, creeping up. The favorable rating is going down. Chris, I think that this is a reflection that Americans are noticing this, that the border is not some far-off thing that doesn't affect them. Towns at the border, one of them is having problems because they have released COVID-positive people, were never told about it, let alone the seeding people into the interior of the country. I know you recently spoke with the former head of ICE. What's your take on this?
He informed me that we're already to something like 1 million in the fiscal year of folks that in this pandemic have illegally crossed this border. Victor Davis Hanson, our colleague, said we're probably on pace at this clip, maybe 2 million annually. Wow. That's small, that's large metropolitan cities crossing the border illegally. Not a one of them, said the former ICE director, vaccinated. And not that I expect our ICE officials and our border officials to vaccinate. They're not doctors, for heaven's sakes. But Democrats aren't insisting on those folks being vaccinated, which makes this all a joke. We continue to read these ridiculous stories in the Daily Beast and Politico about Branson, Missouri, or Lake of the Ozarks as these hot spots. We're not dumb. I'm from Missouri, the show me state, and show me what you're doing about the border, which is zip. Millions of people unvaccinated, as you said, seated all over the country, and we're the problem? We're the ones that need to be punished? Please.
Well, it's interesting, Katie, and you've alluded to it very perfectly, that this is perhaps not a mistake, that this is what they want, that it is a crisis. And strangely enough, with all the talk about caring about COVID and people's health, Even making the trek if you have COVID-19 it puts you at great risk. The children who never make it. These are the people who are supposed to be the champions of the downtrodden. And yet their policies are condemning those very same people to death and suffering and to an internal dynamic where they have no real power and will continue to be sick because of the desperation of what they face. How do we explain this being an actual policy?
Well, Tammy, I mean, the Democrats and the Biden administration have completely emboldened the criminal cartel elements of this. I mean, I was in Arizona in April to visit the border there and to see what was going on and what had changed since Joe Biden came into office. And the smuggling unit said that now human beings are worth more money to the cartels in terms of trafficking than drugs are. And so they're making upwards of $25 million a day to traffic these human beings into the country. And then the Biden administration is perfectly happy to finish the job by taking these people and putting them on buses without properly testing them or quarantining them and sending them to American communities all over the country. Now, those people are making a choice to pay the cartels, right? But there's this bigger question of why is the Biden administration putting Border Patrol agents at risk of getting COVID, ICE agents at risk, local law enforcement at risk of getting COVID? Then, of course, they clearly don't care about American citizens getting COVID from illegal immigrants, or they would be vaccinating them.
We got to go. Clearly, great points, all. Thank you both. Now, up next.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.